Welcome to another episode of the Supply UnChained podcast. I am your host, Ali Raza, and today I am honored to host Dr. Mohamed Amer, who is one of the top retail experts that I've had the pleasure of learning so much from an enterprise tech perspective, an overall industry perspective, to share more about his story and what he's working on today. So, Dr. Amer, first of all, thank you so much for making the time. How are you doing today, and what are you up to?
Hey, it's great having me here. You're. I'm so sorry. Uh, Thank you very much, Ali. It's a pleasure and honor to be here with you, and I am looking forward to sharing some of my insights and experience with you. I started many years ago in the supply chain before I even understood that it was supply chain when I was in the military, looking at how uh, different targets that we looked at, how they moved their equipment, their weaponry, their positions, and understood that logistics was key to understanding intentions, understanding capabilities. So that was kind of early on. And then after business school, really got into uh, distribution centers, supply chain, wholesale, retail, and also in the consulting arena. And that led to starting a new venture that looked at transportation management systems and looking at inventory management. And at that time, visibility was a big key issue that needed to provide across supply chain. And today, visibility is a given, and more around the flow and bottlenecks and so on. Things that TOC, things that you're moving forward with and making important and realizable for companies. Uh, and then within SAP, once I moved into the enterprise software arena, really looked at how large organizations, large companies manage their supply chain. And in a nutshell, it was rather poorly, very slow moving, and decision rights, decision silos. So there was a lot of opportunity to look at that, especially in the Americas, where I focused uh, my domain, North and South America. So that was around retail, and eventually expanded to CPG and the whole consumer industries arena. Today, outside of teaching strategy and entrepreneurship at Pepperdine University's Graziadio Business School, I co-founded Bridgecom AI. So we solve a very specific and very painful problem for SME brands. When you land a meeting with Target or Walmart, you still have to submit your product data in their exact format. Most brands stumble there and lose weeks, sometimes even months. So we get them ready in 30 days. And as AI agents increasingly mediate how consumers discover and buy products, we make sure that when the consumers stop Googling and start asking AI, the brands that we are working with show up and their competitors don't. So that's in a real quick nutshell where we are. And I think supply chain operates at all of those levels. And whether AI is at the back end, if you will, or the front end, there's no way to ignore what AI's impact on business and value chains in general.
Thank you, Dr. Amer. So you're well cited and recognized by the industry on the retail side. Talk to me about how you ended up on the retail side with a military background, enterprise tech at SAP. So what made you sort of focus and say, hey, for retail and now AI as well, this is the place to be?
So when you look at economies, when you look at GDPs, when you look at what moves entire nations, the global economy, you can't avoid consumer spend. Consumer spend is about retail primarily. There are other aspects to it, of course, but consumer facing industries are at the leading edge of trends in social trends, technological trends, business trends. So it was always just very exciting to kind of be constantly learning, adapting, and understanding where the puck is going versus where it is today or where it has been. So very dynamic industry. Uh, the transition really from military, let me even go back. To get myself through college, I worked at Sears and Roebuck. So my 4 years in college, that was my job in catalog sales. So that was my early kind of taste of retail and understanding seasonality. Uh, Catalog sales around Christmas time, that between Thanksgiving and Christmas was always a zoo. And so seasonality, understanding consumer expectations, uh, all those things were kind of embedded early on. Getting into the military, really different mindset completely, looking at big picture issues, geopolitics, trying to measure signal or get signals for intent, capabilities. Is this credible? Is this not? So I went from something very kind of in the weeds, if you will, to something very abstract, and then making that transition to corporate America through business school. That kind of became the bridge to understand the experience that I've had over the years, and then how does that fit inside of business, which got me to the wholesale industry, distribution centers, warehouse management system implementations, and the consulting arena. Uh, so retail was kind of like a magnet. That's where the investments were. That's where the eyeballs were. That's where things happened, and that was the attraction to me. And you can't be in consumer-facing industries or retail or CPG without understanding where technology is moving. The internet made a huge, huge change, and that was part of um my venture where we were acquired, and that was a successful exit for us, and that was driven all by the rise of the internet and inventory visibility that was required. And then today going to AI, and that is creating opportunities and also a lot of challenges for companies.
So, as you mentioned, right? So, talk to me about, and you're one of the few people who could probably speak to this. Is what are the similarities and the difference between lost mission readiness and lost sales? Because I think very few people have lived both lives to say, hey, this is what supply chain means for readiness versus supply chain means for sales. So maybe just speak to the parallels. I think you already covered it, saying what you learned on the military side, and that pros and cons, differences. What did you pick up on both sides?
Okay, and that was between. Give me the two polls one more
So
time.
it's a mission readiness on the military side,
Yeah,
and
mission
then
ready.
the
Yeah,
dual use
yeah,
case
exactly.
is the lost sales on the retail side.
Right, right, right. So in the military, you're dealing. The organizing principle is the mission. That is that's what coheres everything. You understand the impact that you have, whether you're supporting it, whether you're doing it, whether you're in the field, whether you're in the Pentagon. You understand that coherence and that unity. So it helps you get focused on what you're trying to accomplish. Mission ready. And mission ready implies a lot of different things. The equipment is in the right place, it's in the right status, your training is up to date, your skill set is where it needs to be, the information that you have is accurate, it is up to date. All those things kind of come together, and kind of like time on target, point on target. In retail, missed sales, the retailers work so hard to get that customer either through the door or to get on their website or to get on Amazon and click, get in that basket, ready to buy, come in the store, ready to purchase. So once you have that, you really need to ensure that you can convert. Well, one of the big problems around not converting is you walk in or you are looking for something online and it is out of stock, or you're surprised by the shipping cost. Uh, so, so the whole idea around inventory management, the whole idea about having the right product in the right place at the right time becomes this similar analogy as when you're looking at mission readiness.
And I think you covered it really well. So, I mean, as you mentioned, you were an entrepreneur early when this was, new stuff for everyone. Now you're in the age of AI, and with your new company, you're sort of attacking it. So, what do you think has fundamentally changed from when you were starting and doing early days of material management to what has probably gotten you excited now with the AI age? What are the big drivers of the differences that you see now versus then?
Well, at one point it was just you were happy just to get the right data. Then you were well. Let's see about we use the term real time data, and it was never real time data. It was kind of near real time data, uh, but still had to do something with that. You had to understand that. You had to incorporate it, make a decision. All of a sudden today, well, maybe in the middle somewhere, that data was distributed across a lot of different nodes. So it wasn't sequential, it was now parallel. And different parts of that node can respond and react at the same time. And maybe another step forward, you're looking at um, uh, edge computing, where you're looking now at IoT, sensing at a store, sensing on a shelf, sensing remotely, and being able to feed decision systems somewhere else. Okay. Now with AI, you cut, you collapse all of that. The detection is immediate. The decision process can be immediate. All all that we need to do is, are you going to allow the AI tool to go ahead and execute, or do you want a human in the loop? So we compress time. We really truly get to something called real time, and the decisions can be made very quickly. The cycle time is fast, and the learning that happens with each cycle feeds itself, and so you're continuously improving without really having to work at it from a human side perspective.
Makes sense. So the big question I have is, are you seeing better adoption on the retail side of things? Because on the government side, I think we're still where you were speaking to, where data sync is a weekly effort, right? Even though we would like to do it daily. But on the retail side, are you seeing pick up on like what are some of the use cases that you're seeing across the retail industry where AI is helping and automating and speeding up deliveries or just decision making in general?
Yeah, there's a lot of AI being incorporated inside the distribution centers, the flow, the decision making about where inventory should be at the store, in a different fulfillment center. Um, so AI is definitely getting a lot more in the supply chain, and as well as in the stores. There's a lot of attempts now at making it smarter, helping with the training of associates. Um, but nine in 10 retailers, this is according to an NVIDIA State of AI survey in January, just I guess last month, almost in January, almost in March here now. But 9 out of 10 retailers will increase AI budgets this year, and almost half of retail CPG companies are using or assessing agentic AI, and about a fifth of those have active agents. So Walmart has invested in super agents. Target has agents. It it's difficult to avoid um, the conversation around uh, small or even medium-sized retailers saying we need an AI agent, and that's maybe premature for a smaller or medium-sized player. They need some other things beforehand, but the larger players are definitely investing big, and they are betting on a future in retail where AI agents mediate, if not actually execute your purchase decisions, and that's what they're fighting. Those are the wars that are happening right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was at Manifest a couple of weeks back, so I'm seeing more and more of this. Say, how do we automate the entire decision making, connect everything from retail all the way to the fulfillment side. So, since you've been on both sides, military and retail, and the military tries to be more like the Amazons of the world, and retail tries to be a little bit more mission driven, like the military. So, why do you think neither side has sort of become like the other, right? So, I mean, I'm on many conferences where they would like to be doing fulfillment at the speed of Amazon, but I don't think they've mastered that. And at the same time, the grass is greener on the other side. Retail looks at military to say, okay, maybe they're doing something more advanced, but it isn't the case. So why do you think both sides haven't sort of converged in terms of how to run logistics and supply chains?
Yeah, well, Amazon has really had an amazing trajectory when you look at the history and their ability to continuously exploit what they have, their assets, and at the same time explore to do the new growth engines, the new ideas. They have been excellent in being ambidextrous, protecting the core and continuing to grow with the new ideas. So uh, from a so at the heart of Amazon is technology and supply chain. Uh, Take out as much labor content as you can, automate as much as you can, and continue to drive that, widen that moat. Uh, the hurdle to entry continues to rise. So it's a wonderful model to look at, but there aren't that many Amazons in the world. I think we've gone through some unique history over the last 30 years looking at something at what Amazon has done. But that doesn't mean that companies or different industries can't also learn from that speed, that mentality. The challenge is that in order to be like an Amazon, you need to have a certain mindset, organizational mindset. So you can have the smartest people, you can have the technology, but if the organizational architecture isn't there, if the leadership mindset and the incentive structure isn't there, you can't replicate what you're looking at an Amazon. Similarly, Amazon and other retailers they are moving at the speed of consumer. They have to stay abreast of what's going on, trends socially, technology, pricing, sources, tariffs, you name it. They've got to stay abreast of that, and they constantly uh, reacting. Okay, they're constantly adapting. In the military, the adaptation comes at a really slow pace. There was always a saying that you're always preparing to fight the last war that you were in, okay, or preparing the last uh, opponent that you had been training for. So when I was in the Navy, it was all about the Soviet bloc, all around the USSR. Yet in the theaters where I was running missions and as a mission commander, the USSR was the least of our worries. That was not the main threat. There were other threats that we needed to take care of. But the entire organizational structure was geared towards that um, that threat. So it's the mindset and the organizational structure. And if you and you cannot just rely on technology or having a skunk work that in parallel that can get you out of that, because the momentum, the inertia, if you will, is so strong. You would need a lot of those running parallel. Does that help a little bit? Does that make sense?
No, it's interesting. I've never heard the perspective of, you're basically adopting for the last war that which you were part of, right? And I think that's fair to say, where it's a little bit slower, where you're at with retail, it's much faster pace. If the consumer is moved and you haven't moved with them, then suddenly you lose sales at the end of the day, whether it's Black Friday or you name it. So how have you seen like TikTok and some of the other consumer platforms that are out there now maybe impact your current startup, right? Because you were speaking earlier about like how the demand signal has sort of shifted to different generation, different type of consumer. How is the retail industry adopting to it from your perspective?
Yeah. So the demand signal is really interesting when you're looking at, let's look at a CPG company. Uh, they're getting their demand signal from 5, 10, 15 different retailers. It's not a clean view. The retailer is the landlord. They have that data, the richness of that data, the real time, and so on. Um, and the brand gets the feed, and each feed is a little different. So the synthesis from a brand perspective is far more difficult than for that individual retailer. Uh, Things like TikTok, uh, have really changed how um, the discovery, okay, brand discovery, product discovery, and influencers are influencers, and that impacts then that demand signal. But I think from my perspective, especially the some of the work that I've done over the last year around agentic, what I called agentic commerce at war. It's my upcoming book, Agentic Commerce at War: Strategic Intelligence for the Consumer Agency Battle in the Age of AI. I see platforms like TikTok becoming kind of the epitome, the height of the current model, ad-driven model that influences my buying decision, your buying decision, your son's buying decision, etc. And it becomes very emotional. Yet AI agents, once they mediate, they are unemotional. They are extremely rational. You give them their criteria, and they will meet that criteria. They're not influenced by what we are emotionally driven by. So you have the current demand signals that now we've been accustomed to, coming from a variety of places, but the quality or the nature of it is going to change once AI agents and AI commerce becomes more prevalent, and that will happen over the next 2 to 3 years.
Do you see certain ecosystems already adopting this? Is Asia already leading the charge? Do they already have some of this aggregation of demand signal that you're just speaking to, or do you think they're still ways away to be at that same stage, or what you see in your
So
upcoming book
yeah,
as the future?
larger brands definitely are better at it because they've had to play with large retailers for a while. Okay, but the smaller, medium-sized brands, they are the ones that tend to struggle more, and that's kind of part why at Bridgecom AI we really wanted to come in and support that small, mid-sized brands to help them um, uh, make it more of a level playing field against the larger players, and they can do it at a much faster rate with us.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point, right? So if you think about where a lot of the adoption and the marketing is around, those are like less than 1% of the world's companies, right? So to your point, there's a lot of small, medium-sized businesses. So with Bridgecom, how are you dealing with, I guess, helping them with their demand signal? Because most businesses, they have some sort of Excel sheet, maybe ERP, inventory management system, but how is Bridgecom going in and with the limitations around data, but understanding that one day this business will scale up and be a large fulfillment business? How do you sort of step in there and say, like, this is sort of the guardrails you need to get there, and why you need to put these information systems, these AI systems in place early, so you get the benefit as you scale? Because a lot of people, as you alluded to, right, is they sort of grow and they don't really get their processes right. And to your point, of the organizationally, if they were not AI infused from day one, or we're not going to be data driven from the get go, then by the time they get to a certain size, it's very hard to implement anything to get them to the next level, whether that's SAP or AI, you name it, right? So even though the pipes can be delivered, the plumbing is not really running water at the end of the day. So back to you.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, that's a really important point. And for Bridgecom AI, we're not dealing with that specific problem. However, part of our vision is we're preparing them for. So right now it's the translation, getting them faster to on board with a retailer. Kind of eliminate or reduce that bottleneck when once they get that meeting with a retailer. But our vision is now that we need to be uh, part of the orchestration layer that helps them, uh, that canonical model that we're building that allows one time entry and it will translate to multiple retailers. So as we develop that as a platform, when we're talking about phase two, phase three, then we have the trust, because one of the things that we haven't really talked about is the whole trust architecture that we need around AI and any kind of a new type of technology. But the idea is that then gives us a podium, a platform where we can have those conversations, because it is organizational issues that keep smaller and medium-sized brands from doing the things that they need to do versus waiting and kind of being far more conservative. I think what we're going to see in the next 2 to 3 years is risk averse will equate to dead in the water, and they can't have a more risk type of profile unless they have a trusted partner, somebody that can map that for them, because history has been supportive of them taking these bets, and it should not be a bet. It's a very rational decision, and here's why. So it's not an easy type of answer, Ali. And one of the things that I have just as a solo entrepreneur, as my strategy doctor practice, where I do help companies to kind of bridge from where they are today, where they want to be, or where they need to be. Uh, and we just try to do our best with that. It is an organizational issue and mindset, uh, and that a lot of times it also ends up being family succession or ownership succession, especially in the smaller players.
Now you bring up a good point, right? So we deal with private equity acquired businesses where it's the dad founded the company, mom's the accountant, son is basically playing the field, right? So to your point, how do you convince your customers that you need to standardize early rather than later, right? Because part of like the demand signal that I picked up with even some of the largest retailers in the countries, there's no, like, even within the same retailer, there's no standardized way of reporting the purchases on a daily basis back to whoever's doing the planning, right? So how do you convince some of your customers to say, hey, if you're not standardizing early, this is going to just lead to a lot of volatility long term, which is going to basically impact your cash and everything in between?
Right. So we talk about data. We talk about data is their lifeblood. Data is where everything happens. And a lot of smaller companies, mid-sized brands, and they are focused on their idea is it's a marketing issue. We just need to spend more. We need to be where our customers, our prospects are. Okay, where people are, that's where we need to be. We need to be on TikTok. We need to be on this. We need to be on that. But they ignore their data. So the biggest um, urgency that we communicate is around your data. Your data is not a cost center. Your data is your most precious asset that you have, because that is how you are going to move from wherever you're at to whatever growth state that you wish to get to, or to just be able to survive in the marketplace, because that will help you with discoverability. It's going to help you with being getting in with the right retailers. Is going to help you to understand uh, what is really going on with your products and with your extensions that you have, the lines that you have. So data becomes the lever that we use. Urgency, creating a coalition, aligning, and showing them some quick wins and examples of why and how that data will operate not just today but tomorrow. And as technology evolves, that becomes the asset that they really to hang on to, make sure it's clean, it's consistent, standardized.
Yeah, and you speak more about, and you write about organizational design I've read some of your articles on LinkedIn. So to that same note, right, when is the right time to start? Because, you and I agree that if you design the organization's processes first and set up the data measurements, and then basically say, let's go find and do customer research, do product market fit and scale, that's all a more repeatable model. But to your point, some of the businesses that you're running into, they either think they're too small for AI or they're too early to get started. When do you think is the right time to get started, right? Because not everybody thinks, okay, how do I start from processes first and then build up, like sort of almost like a Toyota management philosophy. Like when do you think is like to your customer base, like when should they start, right? What size, how many people, state of
Yeah.
state.
Yeah, in retail, on the retail side, there's a $50 million retailer is kind of equivalent in complexity to a $5 million CPG or brand. So the scale is a little bit different, but it's really telltale signs. Uh, uh, you're working hard. You should be, your revenue should be growing, but instead they're flat. You're not getting into some retailers that you thought you ought to be able to get into. Um, your customers are asking you for things that you hadn't considered in your store, if you're a retailer. Um, so it's more around the signals, um, the softer signals that you get from talking to customers, whether your customers are the end users, if you're a retailer, or whether your customers are a specialty retailer or a larger retailer. You just need to see whether your uh, uh, what's happening with technology is now um, hindering you, and you don't even realize that's what's happening. So uh, being just aware of the trends that are going on around you, that becomes one of the ways for them to have an early detection. And then beyond that, it's really how well then you're you're within your organization, you're listening from the bottom up. Are you getting the signals from the field? Are you aligned? And I have several kind of diagnostic tools that help with that. But it is even a small startup in brands. They today you I cannot imagine a brand starting up without using AI. Okay, so so I know that they're doing that, but an established brand that's maybe 4 or 5 years old, or maybe 10 years old, but it's just kind of stuck. Having AI can really help you then understand what you're missing and what the potential are. Uh, how you implement that, um, it's funny. You can actually ask AI to help you with that, but it's like asking somebody that's in charge uh, of the barn or something. So the idea is you do need to have some external advisors, and it doesn't need to be an expensive consulting firm. It just, an advisor that can give you an objective perspective about what is happening to the business, where you need to go, given your goals and what you're desiring.
I'm glad you brought up advisory, right? So you work with many startups in this space, right? So talk to me about the startup ecosystem. What do you think they're doing right? What do you think they could be doing better? Right now, everybody is an AI and supply chain company, as you know, or logistics. But what are you seeing across the board in both your advisory practice and maybe just what you've been tracking over the years, right? Especially after COVID happened, that's when a lot of these companies sort of became relevant. I would say that was the 2015 to the 2019 cohort. They sort of came of age. So talk me through like the startup ecosystem. Yeah.
Yeah. So the startup world, it's really unique here in the U.S. You've got a lot of obviously a magnet around Silicon Valley, but there are also now smaller magnets in other locations as well, and even around Walmart, there's now kind of a mini magnet around a retail startup ecosystem. And I think that is one of the things that I've noticed is different locations have different emphasis on the technology up in Silicon Valley, retail around Northwest Arkansas. But the commonality around all that is everyone is trying to come up with this hitting a grand slam, not just a home run, but hitting a grand slam. That TAM has to be huge, TAM, SAM, SOM, and it's not really credible. Uh, it's you've got to really be focused on a specific pain point that the your customer base, whoever you're going after, truly values. They know that it's a pain, and you're going to solve it in some way that where the value you're creating is sufficient for them and for you. But more than that, that value creation, you need to be able to also capture that. A lot of players will be able to create the value, but if you can't capture the value, if you if you're not the only one capturing that value, for example, platforms, they don't really create a lot of value themselves, but they bring in complementers and all sorts of assets that create the value. But the platform is the one that captures most of that value. So um, entrepreneurs, they really focus a lot around the specific problem, the solution, go to market, and the value that they create, and they don't think a lot about the value capture, the appropriability, and the protection, the IP protection that they need.
Yeah, I think you covered it well. So similarly to your analogy of Grand Slam versus a good win. So it's our pitch often is like, okay, nobody's really solving the supply chain planning piece, but if you can be better than the status quo and it's an improvement on what you have, why are you not focusing on that, right? So I think the problem in the ecosystem is obviously you have to get to a billion in valuation very quickly, right? And either you do that through marketing or trying to get a grand slam. But to your point, there are some physics related limitations to what can be done in supply chain, and if you can't find a true physical pain point, right, and sort of fix that node, or figure out how to repeat that solution over and over again, scalability is very, very hard to do.
Yeah, one of the things that I deal with in my entrepreneur class is don't underestimate the inertia in an existing customer or prospect. That is another option that I have. It's not just you versus a competition, but also uh, don't do anything, not doing something, that becomes the winner in a lot of these competition, because um, the culture within that prospect is not set for taking risks, big risks, small risks. The um, the ability for them to visualize and understand that by solving this problem, that in turn will help them solve another problem, and that will solve them another problem. They become too silo focused. The buyer that you're going after is in this part of the organization, but the value accrues to more of the organization. But how do you get the coalition inside of that in the sales motion? across that enterprise. So it's a little bit more difficult when you're talking, especially in government or the larger organizations, because the silos are real and the silos are they're not even semi-permeable. uh, those are other issues that get in the way of, even though you identified the problem, you have a value add, there's an ROI, it still doesn't come up. You can't take it across the goal line.
Yeah, I mean, enterprise politics. I guess in your days of SAP, they're sort of the masters of navigating an enterprise, right? So, so you speak about entrepreneurship and teaching. How did you end up teaching that class, right? Because most entrepreneurs, what they typically do is they have a little bit more time. Either they're, taking it easy or starting their next venture. What drove you to go into teaching and
Yeah,
teach entrepreneurship?
yeah. So I finished my doctorate during the very first year of COVID, and I, part of my transition from SAP, I had started the PhD doctorate program for a number of years before when I was with SAP, and uh, I, I I underestimated the dedication that you need in order to really do it right, to get that dissertation completed and defended. So once I left SAP, I had that time, and I was able to get that done. And like I said, I've always loved learning. I've always liked to push myself to learn new things. Even when I'm in class, I'm learning from my students about the businesses that they're in, the industries that they're in, the kind of problems that they're in, and I learn from that as well. So teaching was something that I wanted then to impart what my experience across military, startup, consulting, enterprise, entrepreneurship in the classroom, because uh, I have a passion for sharing that. And I discovered that I really enjoyed it. So I'm teaching both strategy. These are capstone course strategy and the entrepreneurship, and those are at the MBA level, like I said, at Pepperdine Presidio Business School. And so I've been doing that now. I'm in my second year, and loving every minute of it.
So, how are the two classes different? The strategy, entrepreneurship, strategy
Yeah.
more focused towards.
So strategy, when I went to business school, Michael Porter was God, and everything else kind of flows from that. But today, when you're looking at strategic management, you need to not just look at the classical ways of or understanding organizations and industries and rivalries and so on, but you need to also get into more dynamic way of looking at industries, uh, and platforms, digital. So all these things have changed how you look at strategy, from uh, uh, game theory to scenario planning, to understanding stakeholders, governance models. So it goes beyond the original view around strategy. You position here, or you have core competencies. It goes from a kind of a more fixed structure and view to a lot more dynamic and a lot more relational. And how does someone like Netflix, that started out with DVDs, end up being the king of streaming, when Amazon, Hulu also were right there and had all the assets for streaming? Okay, so ambidexterity, and strategic ambidexterity, all those things then become really uh, keen in putting a capstone together for the MBAs before they graduate. Entrepreneurship, I just have a passion for the ideas, and how do you translate ideas and go through a specific set of frameworks. It's not just the gut. It's not just you saw pain when you were in an industry, or you've been reading the Wall Street Journal or whatever it might be, and you got some ideas. No, there are specific frameworks that you go through in order to identify the customer, validate the customer, validate your experiment, go through the lean startup model, go through the IP things, how you're going to finance it. So the entire framework, and by the end of the the term, they present their pitches, and it's not pitches that yes, this is a pitch that now they can really take to a VC, although they could, but it's more about did they apply the frameworks? Did they go systematically and see that being an entrepreneur is a systematic process? It's not just guesswork or a hunch or intuition.
Yeah, to your point, right? It's a very long life journey, science experiment, as you put it, right? I remember my junior class for engineering entrepreneurship is what they offered at my university, but it was just a lot of reading, a lot of cases, right? Understanding. So to talk to me more about that, which is how much of you think the learning happens at the in the class, because obviously the frameworks are important, and how much the learning actually happens building a business, right? Obviously you
Oh,
learn a lot more around
yeah,
building a business, but
yeah,
if you have the frameworks, do you
yeah.
speed up some of your discovery? Does it help? How does it help?
A number of years ago, I was at one of the SAP projects, and I was leading that project at least through the go live period. And the CIO and I got a really good relationship, and we're talking about startups, and he had a chance to do couple of startups, and he's done well. And he said, doing a startup is like earning an MBA. You learn the most from going through your own startup. Everybody should do that in order to really understand, translating things that are on paper and in books to real life. That's the real MBA. And obviously it's stuck in my head. This is 25 years or ago or more now. And when I went through my startup, it was definitely a learning experience, and it came obviously after I did my MBA. Uh, what I'm doing with the entrepreneur class at Pepperdine is novel. I have integrated. This is my second semester doing this. Integrated AI completely into the entrepreneurship syllabus. So more than almost a third of their grade or third of their grade is by how they're using AI to help them through the process. And each week we're going through different frameworks, but applying them and using AI, large language models, to help them validate it, understand it, set up experiments, uh, do whatever they need to. But like I believe today, you cannot be an entrepreneur and ignore AI. If you are, then you are starting from a mile back before anybody else.
And that's pretty incredible, yeah, that you've made one third of the syllabus sort of tied to AI. So did that also trigger you to write your book, or what were you thinking about writing this book before that?
No, it was before that. The book came from I've had a long uh, passion, desire to understand uh, what is happening with agency, um, our ability to make decisions, to control what we do and what we say. And we're very much in a advertisement driven economic model. So we react and respond to emotional triggers, cues that tell us this is what you should look like, this is how much you should weigh, this is what looks good, this is what doesn't, this is the music you should hear, this is what you should buy, etc., etc., etc. So the old Madison Avenue, Mad Men, now it's just become exponential, where social media is the new way of influencing how you should think, feel, and what you should do, and how you should show up. Uh, so I saw the advent of artificial intelligence and large language models as the technological opportunity for consumers to take back that control from platform driven decisions. So the Amazons of the world, the TikToks, uh, Google, Meta, uh, they are driving behavior. They're making you think that you're making decisions on your own, but they're feeding you what you want to see, and you're just kind of checking off, okay, suggested, recommended, and so on. So with AI, What happens if that AI is working for you, for your interest, not for the ad revenue model, but for you? The purchase decision may be very different. And that is an opportunity that exists. And in one of my earliest articles, I think middle of last summer, I talked about that Apple, because to me, even back then at that time, Apple had been kind of stuck in this AI uh, uh, race. They're lagging behind, and I saw that if they went in on the consumer end, I know that Apple traditionally is a hardware, but if they could have, or maybe they still can, uh, become the champion of consumer AI agents, then they can integrate that within their ecosystem and become the go-to for when I want to make a purchase decision versus having to go through Amazon or Meta or whoever it might be, where the platform is the one uh, that wins, that gets the revenue, gets the attention, gets the ad, instead of being ad driven. So that was kind of the impetus that I saw, confluence between technology in the form of AI agents and a long passion around how do we reclaim agency as human beings. And there was a book that came out a few years back called The Fourth Turning. And it talks about this mega cycle, like every 80 or 90 years cycle. And we're going through what is called the fourth turning right now. And it extends to like the early 2032, 2033. And that talks about changes in society. So when I kind of look at the confluence, that convergence between technology, people wanting to have more agency about what's happening to them and the decisions, and the fourth turning, it just seemed like an appropriate time to tackle that agentic commerce at war.
Yeah, and that's the title of your book, Agentic Commerce at War, and that should be out later in the summer. You said, or
Yeah, yeah, yes, it's the teaching load kind of took some of my attention away, but in the next couple of months, I'm hoping that it'll be there.
that's good. I'll look forward to that. I mean, some of the stuff you write on LinkedIn requires a couple of reads for me to fully grasp it. So I'll definitely peruse it. To your point, right? I sort of agree with you. Apple, given that they pretty much have AI in the hands of everyone, I thought they would be doing more to figure out how to get you to engage with their phone more, because it's always in your hand, and they're in a prime position to start driving and understanding your behavior outside of the ads, and there's obviously their marketplace that they can. But it's strange that they have not really taken that step in that direction, because they already have an interface that can guide people to use more AI. So what are your thoughts there?
So what they are, because their mental model is all around hardware, that's how we make our money. Uh, they are forgetting about the exploration side. So they've got the exploitation nailed down, but they're not doing the exploration the way that they used to, 2005, 2006, 2007, and beyond. Okay, so that's the main difference between the two eras. Uh, More of a caretaking versus truly innovating big time. So instead, Apple is looking at AI and trying to catch up, trying to play the game at this that other players that are ahead of them are trying to play, and that is a losing game. What you need to do is change the game. You have to do something different. You have to redefine the game. That in game theory, and you just Brendan Berger and Neil Buff, their seminal work. You just can't you can't play the same game as others by their rules and expect to win if you're coming from behind. You have got to have something different. You've got to change the board. You've got to change the way the moves are perceived. And that to me was a clear window of opportunity, that for the board at Apple, for the CEO to explore, to really do something different, and still go down the AI path, but to do it in a different way that allows them to differentiate big time from anybody else.
Yeah, even if they start on their desktops and their laptops, right? Because like most of the AI we do is still on laptop. I don't do it as much on my phone, except for like maybe a on and off query. But it's interesting how like these traditional hardware players have not yet thought of making that interface more AI centric. And the players that are now coming up, if they start getting the hardware and those systems are AI centric, they're going to change an entire generation's adoption, right? Like Gen Z, Gen Alpha is already used to going to ChatGPT to answer questions, versus like at least my generation still goes to Google and then Gemini pushes something out. So definitely an opportunity there. From a supply chain perspective, like do you think the industry is still lagging? I mean, obviously AI is doing all sorts of stuff for payroll and HR and finance, but where do you see the the direction supply chains headed and the entrepreneurs in that space for the next 5 to 10 years?
5 to 10 years is a long time, but
Yeah, especially now.
yeah, what I see is happening is, I'm taking the perspective of retailer or CPG brand. You've got AI playing at the back end in the supply chain, and you've got AI playing at the front end with how you're interacting with customers and what you're doing in your store and how products are being discovered. So brands are kind of in the middle, trying to figure out how to get the efficiencies from the back end and trying to be have the awareness and discoverability and visibility from the front end. In the future, supply chain and value chain, I think they all kind of come together. The supply chain has become, especially through COVID, the supply chain has become the brand. They, having products on the shelf, having products available. COVID kind of heightened that supply chain isn't just backroom stuff. It is become synonymous with your brand. And now AI is changing the front end of it. And that in turn changes how the whole SNOP cycles run, the way that you integrate uh, between decisions as AI. You get able to then connect signals from the front to the back, and it changes completely what planning is, what execution is. It becomes how much of it you're going to allow AI to just go through and do, or how much of it you're going to uh, present that and then you make a decision. So, as a supply chain planner, instead of finding patterns, instead of intuition, instead of relationship, they become designers. They
Gotcha.
become more around enablers, and it's not so the skill set changes, and it frees up a lot of their time, but it changes the job completely. And there's a lot of jobs will also be lost because of AI. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's just a matter of will that the benefits that accrues be spread across the organization, or is it going to just be very narrowly focused? Yeah.
Yeah, I think you brought up a great point, right? Which is supply chain is now becoming product chain because it's basically you have a brand and everything that supports the brand is now part of that. Everybody's sort of doing part of that supply chain effort, right? So, and I guess with that, where do you see the industry heading, right? What is your recommendation on where maybe budding entrepreneurs or people in the supply chain space should focus on right now? What are the gaps that still need to be figured out? To your point, right? A lot of people are going for grand slams, but what are
Yeah.
the things that need to be fixed, but nobody's really paying attention to? But if they fix it, people might be very successful at it, right? From
Yeah.
your opinion.
So I would urge them to look at um, things that aren't necessarily sexy. So the heavy lifting, the things that uh, keep these big ideas from coming to life. something. One of the concepts I talk about, dedicated in the book, is around a, a way to ensure that there's verification in the system. How do you know that what AI is recommending is valid, is real, it is really in your benefit? So the whole verification infrastructure, I think that is an area that I think will become more and more important as AI takes on more and more of the decision authority or decision rights. So that's an area that I think will be fascinating. How do you ensure that is in place? Um, the think about one of the things that we're dealing with Bridgecom AI is that the traditional product catalog has very structured things about the SKU, the description, the size, the weight, blah blah blah,
Metadata,
nutrition,
yeah.
yeah, all that. But now what happens to things like, but I want that I want it to be the influencer associated with a certain influencer that I love. So I want that to be that. Pick one that has that person. Pick one uh, that's related to a certain event, Coachella concert or whatever, in Southern California, a certain time of year. All of a
Olympics.
the metadata isn't friendly to traditional PIMs anymore. So so and that translates to also, it needs to be in stock. You need to be able to deliver it within 24 hours. You need to be, and so on. So all of a sudden, the supply chain that's back here connects with what's happening from my desires, that when I send my AI to go look for something for me. So you can't ignore how those connect together now, and it'll just become more and more prominent in the next few years.
Dr. Amer, great insights as always. And just to wrap up, what's the best way to get to your new startup or yourself? Is it LinkedIn? Would you be willing to share email?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the easiest way. Bridgecom AI, it's bridgecom.ai. That's another way. But LinkedIn, right there. Happy to get engaged in any conversation.
And Dr. Amer always posts some amazing articles. So I always look forward to whenever your thoughts come out. And so, on behalf of the Supply Unchained podcast, thank you again so much for your time, and good luck with your latest startup, and look forward to your contributions in this space as always.
Thank you, Ali. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you tonight.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.